Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly. Well, welcome back to the DCL podcast, and as always, it's always a lot of fun to go across the Atlantic and welcome our next guest, who has been, I think this is your fifth time coming on the show, I think, Florian. Welcome back to the show, Florian. How are you?
Hello again from Germany. I'm good as always. Yeah, I think it's the fifth time that we do a show together. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I do appreciate you coming on. It's always fun to talk to you about all different types of aspects of cruising, and I know we have a lot of listeners that always love to hear your kind of take on the cruising industry and what's going on at Meyer Werft and what's going on over in Europe. So let's just jump into it and talk about Meyer Werft. You've got some kind of neat news on what's going on. We know from last time when we were talking that the Aida Nova is the next ship that is probably scheduled to be launched after the Norwegian Bliss. But just was it yesterday that you've got some news about what happened?
Well, yes. Yesterday, the shipyard released a press statement that they started cutting steel for another ship, which is going to be built for P&O, so the British subsidiary of Carnival. And this ship is going to be delivered in 2020. And as we all know, that in 2021, the first ship or new ship for Disney Cruise Line will be delivered. That means in 1 to 1.5 years, the first steel plate will be cut for the next generation of Disney cruise ships. So that's going to be quite interesting until then.
Yeah, that's exciting news. So somewhere between next May and next November of 2019, they are going to make that initial cutting. And is there, as we talked about, as the ships come out and are launched, there's a big ceremony. Is there a ceremony for that initial steel cutting as well?
Yeah, usually there is a quite, small, comparatively small ceremony because the first steel plate is cut in the laser welding and laser steel cutting facility of the shipyard, which is one of the most, let's say, important parts of the shipyard. So not everyone can go there. And usually only the CEOs of the cruise line and the shipyard are present at this ceremony. And they press a giant red button, take a good-looking photo, and then the first steel plate is cut.
Pretty exciting stuff. And those steel plates are the ones that are are those the ones that they put the engines on initially, or is that part of the hull? Do you know?
I have no idea, to be honest. Okay. Usually they just cut out the silhouette of the ship, like 1.5, 2 meters long. So it's more representative, let's call it that way.
Okay, so it's a little bit more ceremonial, but that's kind of cool. I wonder what they do with that piece of steel that's cut out in the shape of the ship. That would be kind of interesting to know what they do with that, maybe.
Well, during the building, they have it shown in the laser cutting facility, although one exception is the Aida Nova. The steel cutting of Aida Nova is shown in the visitor center of the Meyer shipyard.
That's kind of neat. So kind of like a symbolic start to the process of building the ship. What an exciting time! So year to year and a half from now, the first Disney ship will be on its way, and the manufacturing process. Pretty exciting.
Oh yeah, it's faster than I thought, actually.
Yeah, I know the time keeps going by so quickly, and I know that the summer, I'm sure, will go by pretty fast, and you will be on your way, too, on your next contract cruise. So, yeah, life just keeps going, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, it keeps running.
It keeps running. Well, anything else going on at Meyer Werft, then, before we talk about some of your experiences that you've had recently?
Well, maybe 2 updates. On the first one on Aida Nova, where the steel construction is already finished, so all the around 85 blocks have been assembled, and now they can concentrate on bringing cabins in, do the outfitting of the public areas, just like restaurants, lounges, bars, theater, and so on and so on. So she can be floated out of the building dock in mid-August, end of August. And the first mega block of Spectrum of the Seas, so 140 meters long with the main engines in it and so on, will be floated out somewhere now in the end of May. So the second mega block can be assembled, which is going to be the bow part of Spectrum of the Seas.
Okay, perfect. And just to go back and remind everybody, since most of our audience is U.S.-based, AIDA is a German-based ship line, and the AIDA Nova is going to be the first LNG ship that Meyer Werft produces. So pretty exciting to see that ship come out and come online when it's finished.
Yeah, indeed, she's going to be the first ever cruise ship fully powered by LNG. So it's going to be a very, very interesting ship.
So a lot of things going on in Meyer Werft, as always. It just keeps on coming. That manufacturing line just keeps on coming. It's just one ship after the next. So pretty exciting to see that continue.
Oh yeah, it absolutely is, and it's going to be like that at least until 2024 at this rhythm.
This rhythm, yeah. Well, awesome. Well, let's jump into some of the things that you have been able to do recently, and with the launching of the Norwegian Bliss, we've kind of been covering and talking about that ship now for over a year. You had an opportunity to sail on it from Bremerhaven over to England, Southampton,
yeah.
And let's just go back and just start from the beginning. Was that considered an inaugural cruise, or was the inaugural cruise the cruise after that? Since this was kind of more press related and kind of showing off the ship to the travel industry.
Norwegian Cruise Line called it an inaugural cruise, but it was purely for invited travel agents, press, and so on, partners, suppliers, people like that. And afterwards, they did the first cruise, the transatlantic cruise to New York, with, let's say, normal guests, so people who were paying to be on the ship.
Okay. Just for a fun fact, I was pulling it up as we were talking about it today before we jumped on, and the Norwegian Bliss was built specifically to sail up in Alaska. They've got some open spaces up higher in the decks with observation areas so that people can really take in all the majesty and the scenery of Alaska. And she is just passing Cabo. She's just north of Cabo on her way up to, I believe, San Diego, and on her way up to Alaska for her first cruise. So pretty exciting to see her make it all the way across and beginning those Alaska cruises here soon.
Yeah, and then there will be the christening of Norwegian Bliss in, I think, Seattle by Ellen Duran, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's the second time that Norwegian Cruise Line chose a male godfather in this case.
Okay. Who I wonder who decides that. I wonder is that the CEO decides it, or I wonder who decides who that is. Or
I think so.
Yeah, probably.
So.
Well, good.
I think the marketing department has something to say in that as well, but I think the CEO has the last word.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, cool. So let's just go back from the beginning. How did you get selected to be able to be on the sailing?
Well, some of you might know that I'm a travel blogger as well. So I know the people at Norwegian Cruise Line in their European office quite well because I did one of my internship semesters there, and they remembered that I was also writing for travel blogs and other publications. So they luckily invited me to join Norwegian Bliss for this, unfortunately, only 2-night cruise, but it was a very good opportunity to get an overview of the ship, yeah.
Okay, and what are your overall thoughts on seeing it and being on it? What did you think of Norwegian Bliss?
I think she is the 5th or 6th ship of the Norwegian fleet that I was on board, and she's absolutely my favorite because the relation between the size and the space you have for each passenger is very good. Well, I have to say that during the inaugural cruise I was on, the ship was only 50% full. So there was even more space for everyone. But they really, really thought about how to design the ship, how to design the public spaces and so on. And the panorama spaces you just mentioned, the observation lounges, one is open for everyone and one is only for the suite guests in the so-called The Haven, where all the large suites are located. And those are amazing. They're so wide and with so many windows and glass. You have a stunning view in there. And the good thing is they even serve continental breakfast in the observation lounge. So you can even start your day there when you're still at sea and not in port. You might get some very, very good views.
Oh, that's kind of a neat opportunity to do that. Did you do that, or did you experience that?
Yeah, I did that during our sea day. So we were in the English Channel, and I had breakfast in the observation lounge. And during this cruise, only few people knew about this opportunity. So it was even quite, not so many people were there. So it was quite, how can I imagine or describe it?
It was very relaxing.
Relaxing, that's absolutely right.
Yeah. So did you order off a menu? So it's not a buffet. It's a menu, then they bring it to you at your table.
It's a small buffet.
Okay. Well, awesome.
That's one of the most exciting parts of Norwegian Bliss. There were two things I also liked are on the upper deck, where you have a laser tag arena, which is absolutely funny. We did it. It's an open space, and we did it in the English Channel during the day at sea. And the sun was shining. It was really fun. Although the time we had to play was around 10 minutes, was absolutely too short. And the second thing is, of course, the go-kart racetrack you have. Some of you who may have already cruised with the Norwegian Breakaway or Getaway or Escape might know that there is a ropes course in the back of the pool, and they now put a go-kart racetrack there. I think it's around 1,000 feet long and goes about 2 decks.
And so you get to experience that as well. It's they're electric cars, so they're not gas, correct?
Yeah. Electric, yeah.
Okay. And
they're not too loud.
Okay. And did you get to race Andy Stewart?
No, unfortunately not. He was on board, and I was talking to him, but he had no time, unfortunately.
Oh, I'm sure he was. And Andy Stewart is the CEO of Norwegian Cruise Lines, and that's why he was on board. And you were joking about possibly racing him, but I'm sure he was pretty busy the entire 2 days while he was on board.
Yeah, he was. And he had his mother, so he had to take care of her as well. So it was half business, half private for him. So I didn't want to disturb him, so it's all good.
Well, cool. So fun time on the racing and fun time with the laser tag. I think my youngest actually had a birthday and they played laser tag, and it was only like 10 or 15 minutes that they were allowed to be in there, and then it swapped out. So I think that's kind of like maybe that's a normal thing over here in the U.S. They keep it short so that they can move people through there as quickly as possible.
Yeah, that might be true, yeah.
But maybe it would have been funner if you had a little bit longer time, huh?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So it was free for us, but I think now it costs you $5 or $7. I'm not sure.
Okay.
So it's a little fee. I think they do it to just steer a little bit that not everyone wants to go there, so they don't have too long waiting times.
Okay. Well, great. So you guys get on board, and before we talk about some of the other things that you did while you were on board, what type of cabin did you get to stay in? Did you stay in the Haven, or were you in just one of the regular cabins?
Unfortunately, I wasn't in the Haven, although I wished to. So, but the Haven was open during the cruise, so we could go there and be in the restaurant, be in the bar, be in the observation lounge. No, I was in a standard balcony cabin, which is absolutely fine. It was on deck 8, just next to the District Brewhouse and Food Republic. So I had enough of food and drinks near to my cabin. Yeah, it's a standard cabin. It's around 20 square meters. I don't know how much that is in square feet. And I have to say the balcony was quite large. So when you know Norwegian Breakaway and Getaway, they have quite narrow balconies, and they changed it with Norwegian Escape, and fortunately it stayed this way with the Bliss. So the balconies were a little bit larger than on previous ships. Okay.
And I mean, being up in Alaska, for those who want to spend the time on their own balconies and take in the scenery, that's great news as well, to have a little bit bigger space out there for the guests.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, great. So let's talk a little bit about some of the food that you guys got to experience. You talked about the brew house, and what other types of food did you get to experience on the Bliss?
I wanted to try the same thing I tried on Norwegian Escape. So try every restaurant, which are 27 on this ship in total, within 2.5 days. I didn't succeed, but I tried my best. Well, where did I eat? I had lunch in one of the smaller main dining rooms, which was the Taste.
Mm-hmm.
So there are 3 main dining rooms: Taste, Savor, which are the smaller ones, and the Manhattan Room. The Manhattan Room is in the aft of the ship and has a quite large or panoramic view because it's also covered by glass. And they changed a few things on Norwegian Breakaway, Getaway, and Escape. They had a little dance floor and live music in the center of the Manhattan Room. This has been changed, so no more dancing during dinner in the Manhattan Room on Norwegian Bliss. Fortunately, I liked it.
Mm-hmm.
And the main dining rooms always serve the same menu. So the design and the rooms are a little bit different, but the food is the same. These are the main dining rooms. Then they have the Garden Cafe, which is buffet, up at deck 17, I think, the pool deck, 16 or 17.
Okay.
Which I tried for breakfast because I just like to take small and fast breakfast and more for lunch and dinner.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So they have, in my opinion, the buffet at Norwegian Cruise Line is the best at sea. Although I don't know how it is on Disney ships and Royal Caribbean ships, which I think will about the same. I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't been on Royal Caribbean. I think Disney's, I guess I'm going to say this, which is I think that they both have their pluses and minuses. So there's some things that Disney does a little bit better, and then there's some things that Norwegian does a little bit better. But overall, I think they both have very good buffets as far as Norwegian and Disney go. So good experiences there.
And they have some new restaurants as well on Norwegian Bliss. For example, they have a Texas smokehouse now. It's called The Q. And they serve Tex-Mex over there. And in the evening, they even have live music there. So live music switched from Manhattan Room to the new Texas Smokehouse.
Okay.
I didn't have dinner there, but people I talked to really enjoyed it. And the other new restaurants are Los Lobos, which is also a Mexican restaurant, but more, let's say, upper class. So it's one of the specialty restaurants that cost you a little extra. And at Norwegian, you pay a la carte prices for the specialty restaurants. So you still kind of can influence it yourself how much you pay extra if you want to go into or to the specialty restaurants. The other new restaurant is actually only for dessert. It's called Coco's, and they serve amazing chocolate and milkshakes there. I wanted to order a milkshake, but I saw from other people how big they are. It was just too much for me alone. So, but that also costs a little extra, but the prices are okay. It's between, I think, $5 and $15, which is okay, I think, for the size you get.
Yeah, it sounds go ahead.
And they also do have Starbucks now on the ship. Of course, the ship is home ported in Seattle during the summer season. They have to have Starbucks. And they kind of have the same prices there like you would pay on shore. So it's also not included.
Yeah, I think they had a Starbucks on the Getaway when we were up there. They put a new Starbucks in there, and I think the prices were really reasonable. It wasn't like paying airport prices sometimes that we have in the States, where it's like 3 or 4 times what you would pay downtown.
Wow.
So, yeah, and I'll just go back with Norwegian. Like Florian was saying, they have 3 complimentary restaurants, and I think that that's a good thing that they did, especially for Alaska with the Manhattan Room, by not having the music in there. When we went on the Getaway, the first night we went in there and they had the music going, and I mean it's kind of the upbeat sort of, the Getaway's from Miami, so it's kind of that upbeat Cuban flair kind of sound, and nobody was dancing and it was just loud. And I think that was the only night that they had it. They kind of judged the crowd, and the crowd really wasn't into it. So by going up to Alaska, maybe a little bit older crowd on board, and having, the scenery being and the destination being kind of the focus, I think having those big windows in the back while you're dining that's pretty spectacular. So I think that was a good call on them to do that with the dining rooms.
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. Yeah, I didn't think about that.
Yeah. So So yeah, so you have 3 main dining rooms. Those menus are all the same. They generally stay the same throughout the cruise. And then, as Florian was saying, there's several specialty restaurants. And usually when you book through Norwegian, you can get, depending on how long your cruise, either 3 to 5, I believe, nights. You can choose that to where the specialty restaurant is free, but then other nights, if you want to eat at the specialty restaurants where the food tends to be a little bit better than the main dining rooms, you have to pay for them, as you're saying. But I think it's fairly reasonable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you guys have to pay, or was this covered?
It was all free.
Okay.
So we didn't have to pay for specialty restaurants. We didn't have to pay for Starbucks. Nothing.
Okay.
Not for go-karts, not for laser tag, which was good because everything was free to try. And I was dining in the Caithness Steakhouse.
Oh, yes. What did you think of that?
I had filet mignon as the main course. And I think that was the best piece of meat I ever had on board a cruise ship.
Wow.
It was just amazing. It was perfect. And, well, Norwegian really improved the quality of the food during the last years. But I think with Bliss, they made another step forward. They really, really improved their onboard product. So they are not competing anymore with Carnival Cruise Line. I think they're now competing with Celebrity Cruises, Holland America Lines, and so on, which is very, well, plausible when you think about, for example, now Alaska, where they have different competitors.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good news to hear because, I will admit I'm a fan of Norwegian Cruise Line. I enjoyed going on there, so it's good to hear that they're continuing to improve and keep on pushing the envelope for those who enjoy going on board.
Yeah, they know their customers very well, I think, and they are very good in changing their products to fit customer needs. I think that sums it up quite good.
Perfect. Okay, so as part of this is you've got the press on board and people that are going to get the word out about Norwegian Bliss as we're doing today. What other type of do they have lectures that you could go and attend to kind of talk about the ship and Norwegian and where it was sailing, or what other things did they offer while you were on board besides just trying everything out?
Yeah, we had a press conference with Andy Stewart, for example, the CEO, and Harry Sommer, which is the Executive Vice President of International Business Development, for the whole group. So NCLH, Norwegian Cruise Line Holdings, which is Norwegian Cruise Line, Oceania, and Regent Seven Seas, so the 3 brands. And Harry is responsible for them all. And they gave us a little update on their performance in the US, in Europe, which is quite stunning because they are the cruise line with the highest price per day, with the highest onboard revenue per day and passenger, and with the highest customer satisfaction. So they must be doing something quite right.
Yeah, that sometimes you get what you pay for, right? I guess that's good to hear that the food quality is continuing to improve, and so even though maybe it might be a little bit higher than some of the other cruise lines you could go on, it's worth that price point. Did they talk about anything else? Any like new itineraries or new ideas of what Norwegian wants to do or anything like that?
They did talk about it a little bit. As you might know, Norwegian Bliss was the second last ship that Meyer Werft is going to build for Norwegian Cruise Line. Next fall, Norwegian Encore will be delivered, and afterwards they get ships from Fincantieri in Italy, starting, I think, in 2021. And these ships will be slightly larger than the Breakaway class and Breakaway Plus class for around 3,300 passengers. The Bliss has 4,000 now. And they want to be a little more flexible in their itinerary planning so they can call at smaller ports and have more variability in their itineraries. So I think in the next decade, we can be quite excited what new itineraries Norwegian Cruise Line will plan. For example, I could imagine different South America routes or itineraries. Maybe they put some more ships to Europe, even where they have 5 ships now, which is a third of their fleet. I don't know, but I think it will be quite exciting in the future.
Yeah, I'm just kind of thinking that as you're talking about that. I saw that there was a little bit of unrest in Barcelona just recently, where citizens of Barcelona, were kind of complaining about the amount of cruise ships that are coming into ports like that. So, with maybe some cities having some pushback or just crowding because of all the ships that go there, having a little bit smaller ship that's a little bit more flexible keeps their options open as far as being able to go to different ports like you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this development, which we see in Barcelona, even in Hamburg, Palma de Mallorca, is one of the arguments that makes cruise lines go for smaller ships, slightly smaller ships.
And I think just to segue a little bit into Disney, I had a couple of people wonder why Disney didn't build an even bigger ship. The 3 new ships that they're building are roughly the same size as the Dream and the Fantasy, and obviously Royal Caribbean and Norwegian have some ships that are a little bit bigger than the new ships that Disney are building. But I think that as far as Disney goes, being as small as they are, fleet-wise, I think having, not going with those huge ships gives them more flexibility on where those ships can go. So I think that's probably a smart move for them in the long run too.
They can try out a little bit more because you don't have the risk of having a large ship being half full in an itinerary that people don't like, but your gas frequent cruiser expect you to do because they know all other itineraries. So it's absolutely a smart move.
Yeah, and I'm going to totally go geek out here and go a little way off tangent. You really see it with the airlines. The A380, the largest Airbus, I think its production line is under. They may be shutting it down because they're just not the orders. There's only so many different routes that an A380 can fly, and with the new, and I'm totally drawing a blank now, I think it's the A370, which is the same size as Boeing 777. Those planes are smaller, and they're much more flexible on what type of routes that they can put them on. So I think you kind of see the cruise ship, or just talking about this makes me think that the cruise lines are kind of looking at the same thing in some ways.
Yeah, that sounds quite similar.
Yeah. So, well, cool. Well, that was quite a tangent that we went off on there. So any other type of presentations that you got to see? Anything else stand out in your mind as far as what they talked about or what you were able to see presentation-wise while you're on the ship?
They gave us a little free time. So it was quite funny because there was a time shift from the first night or during the first night, because we were heading off to England, which is 1 hour back compared to Germany. And Harry Sommer, the executive vice president, told us during the cocktail reception that they were giving us 1 hour more sleep, but they want it to return back. So they take 1 hour for the press conference.
So your 1 hour time change, they took it back from having you at the press conference. But yeah,
it was worth it.
How about entertainment? Did you get to experience any of the entertainment on the ship?
Yeah, entertainment, very good point. There are 2 major shows on board the ship, which is Jersey Boys, so the Broadway musical, and there is Havana, which is a show, 2-hour musical show, especially designed and developed for Norwegian Bliss. And Norwegian Cruise Line took so many good people to develop the show. For example, they had the Tony Award-winning director Warren Carlyle as the head of the development team. They had the Cuban-American design duo Ruben and Isabel Toledo for the costumes, which are very colorful and spectacular. And they had the Grammy-winning singer Al Beater writing the songs for the show. And they have quite a large variety of technology on their stage with LED walls, which are much used for all the backgrounds and foregrounds. So they have really a vivid living show in there. And Andy Stewart, the CEO, told us, well, this might be the first show that was developed for a cruise ship and might be transferred to Broadway and not the other way around. And yes, the quality is high enough. Absolutely.
Wow. And so you actually saw the Havana show then?
Yeah, we did see it. I found it very interesting and well, interesting sounds so negative, but you clearly see that this show was developed for Americans, yeah, with all the U.S. Cuban, let's call it, relationship is totally different than the European-Cuban relationship, of course. And so you see really that they wrote this show for their American passengers, which is absolutely fine, because I think in terms of entertainment, Americans are definitely expecting higher quality than Europeans do.
Okay. Yeah. So, and as we've talked about, so this ship was built specifically for Alaska, but in the winter months, it will be down in Miami. And so having that influence of kind of the Cuban, Latin America flair that is kind of in that region of our country, that show totally fits with people that will be able to sail it in the winter months down around the Caribbean.
Absolutely. And the CEO of Norwegian Cruise Line Holdings, Frank Del Rio, is from Cuba, or has ancestors in Cuba, something like that. So his family origin lays on the island.
Okay, I didn't know that. Yeah. It's exciting. They added another ship. They've got 2 ships now that are doing Cuban sailings. They're the smaller ships in Norwegian. And I guess I'm one that is excited to see the U.S. have better relations with Cuba. And eventually, I think that it will be back to the way it was, where it will be more open for everybody to travel and experience it. So I'm pretty excited to see that change happen and see everything kind of around, kind of flow around that, I guess, with Norwegian as well.
Yeah, so am I. So I would love to see Cuba.
Yeah, same here. Fred, we were flying, our company flew to Cuba for about a year, and then they pulled out, and it has a bunch of different reasons why they pulled out. But a friend of mine got to go, and he said it was just amazing just to see the downtown area. They did a tour in one of those old, like, 1950s cars through Havana, and I wish I would have had an opportunity to do that before we stopped flying there. But yeah, I'd love to go there someday.
Oh, yeah. I think it would be a very good destination, hopefully.
Definitely. Well, anything else on your time on Norwegian Bliss before it ended in Southampton? Anything else you want to talk about that impressed you or you were excited to see, or any negatives at all?
Well, there are 2 things I would like to talk about. The first thing is the comedy and nightclub they have. It's called Social, not like the headliners on Breakaway, Getaway, Escape. So they changed the concept a little bit. It's now more a mixture of nightclub and comedy club. So you have the chance to party there. They even have, how do you call them, silent parties where everyone wears a headphone and can choose their music on their own from different channels, which is fun. They have changed the positions of the whirlpools, the hot tubs, and they are not in the center of the pool anymore, the pool deck besides the pool, but they put it directly at the rail. So you have even better views now when you are in one of the hot tubs.
Oh, that's a great point there. Well, let's go back. I've never even heard of a silent party before. Is that something that's big in Germany, or have you experienced that before? Or was that the first time on the ship?
It is a big thing in Germany, and we experienced it ourselves when we were on board Aida Perla, which we'll probably be talking about a little later. So yes, it is quite a thing here in Germany, yeah. Okay,
and then the hot tubs, that's kind of a neat thing too. To once again, probably listening to passengers and people's feedback, saying, "Hey, it'd be kind of cool if it was closer to the railing, so we could kind of take in the sights as you're relaxing after a long day, maybe on a shore excursion."
And I think that might also be because of the itinerary in Alaska, where everything is about the landscape. So Alaska absolutely is about the destination. And when you have the hot tubs positioned as they are on Norwegian Bliss, your view is clearly better. And it makes your pool deck more, let's call it, spacious. So you have more space at the center pool deck, which is also good.
Perfect. Well, you got me excited. You got me really excited to hopefully someday take a cruise on the Bliss. And it just sounds like you had a wonderful 2 days.
Oh, yeah. I thought about taking the transatlantic cruise as well, but I had no time, and I would have to pay it myself.
You had to get back and finish your studies, huh?
Yeah, I chose to do that.
Well, let's transition. Or was there anything else before we transition over to AIDA?
Well, I think that was a quite good overview. about Norwegian Bliss. If there are any more questions, feel free to ask them, and I will try to answer.
Definitely. Yeah, if anybody has any questions for Florian about the Bliss, definitely you can throw it out to me, and I will get it to him. Or if you're following along with his Facebook site as well, I'm sure you can contact him through there. So let's transition over. You and your girlfriend had a chance to sail, was it right after the Bliss on the Aida Perla?
Yeah, 1 week in between, and then Aida Perla, yeah.
Okay. Am I saying that right? Aida?
Yeah.
Aida. Okay, Aida Perla. And Aida is a German cruise line that sails all over the world as well, or where is their main focus?
Their main focus in the summer months definitely is Europe. In the winter months, they go to the Caribbean, they go to Asia, they even have smaller ships doing world cruises. So they go to the Seychelles and so on. Very, very nice places. But their main focus definitely is European Sea, Mediterranean Sea, Canary Islands, and Caribbean.
Okay. And I thought this would be kind of fun. We were talking a little bit before the show. MSC, which is an Italian cruise line, is kind of making strides in the Caribbean. They've been down in the Caribbean for quite a while, and they are just recently, it seems like, with they've got a ship that's going to be based down in Miami, and they're really working at trying to capture a little bit more of the U.S. market, it seems like, or the U.S. consumer sailing with them. And so I thought it'd be kind of cool to talk to you about Aida and kind of get some differences, because there are some differences when you sail with MSC. I have not sailed with them, but just listening to some different podcasts of people who have, because it's Italian-based ship line, cruise line, there are some differences. So I thought it would be kind of fun to kind of pick your brain as far as the differences between like being on a Norwegian ship and being on a Aida ship. So as we kind of go through this, I think that would be kind of fun for our listeners to hear about.
Yeah, and there are lots of differences.
Okay, so so let's just start. You and your girlfriend went. How long was the cruise, and where did it go?
Well, it was 1 week, Saturday to Saturday, and we started in Hamburg, which is not too far away. It's just a 2-hour train ride from Bremerhaven, and then we had a day at sea. And usually the route is a little different, but due to bank holiday, the itinerary was a little bit changed when we were on board. So Hamburg, day at sea, then we were in Le Havre, France. Then we went to Southampton, then to Zeebrugge, I don't know how to pronounce it in English, Zeebrugge, something like that. Then we were in Rotterdam, Netherlands, with an overnight stay, and then another half or 3/4, yeah, I think that's correct. A day at sea.
Okay, I can see the spelling, but I can't say it either. That's Belgium? Was that the one port? Okay.
Belgium,
yeah. Okay. Well, awesome. So, what kind of cabin did you guys book on? And are they kind of the same as the U.S. ships, where they're trying to focus more balcony cabins and less inside cabins, or what are their ships kind of like?
Yeah, the newer ships definitely are like that. The class of ships the Perla belongs to is their newest class. So the Perla is only 1 year old, roughly 1 year, and one sister ship, Aida Prima, is around 1 year older. So their newest class of ships from Aida with around 3,500 passengers at double occupancy. And they have most of their cabins with a balcony. The older ships have less balconies compared to the total number of cabins. Yes, we did have a balcony cabin, which was possible because Aida does give some discounts for people under 25, which is good for us. So we did have, I think, 20% discount, which made it affordable for students. I liked the cabin. It also had a very large balcony and could even move the 2 chairs and the table around. It was very, very large. So wow. not like many other balconies where you can roughly move the chairs. So I really liked it. What I didn't like about the cabin is that you don't have turn down service in the evening. I had to get used to it.
So is that not standard in AIDA as far as when you sail with them versus kind of what the U.S. does where they have the turn down service in the evening?
Yeah, so the standard with AIDA is that they don't have it. I did some research on it, and yes, that's their standard, which is okay, but I think you have to know it and you have to get used to it because on every other cruise ship you get this turn down service. It's a small thing, but if you expect it differently, it might be surprising.
Okay. So, and how are the cabins roughly the same size as something like on the Bliss, or are they a little bit bigger or smaller, or are they kind of the similar?
I think they're about the same size, maybe a little smaller, but not really. Not a real difference, no.
Okay.
I think they are a standard size in the manufacturing.
Okay. So let's talk about like the food then on board. Is it, with a lot of Americans, we like to, get on board and we like our buffets for the morning and then maybe find a place to snack in the afternoon and then go to a restaurant in the evening on board. Is it kind of the same for Germans and for AIDA?
Yeah, it's quite the same, although AIDA really is focusing on buffet. They have 4 buffet restaurants, which open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And they have, I think, 1 buffet, which is open through the whole day, which is at the pool deck. And with AIDA Prima and Perla, they also introduced some a la carte restaurants. You have an Italian a la carte restaurant, you have a French a la carte restaurant, which was our favorite one, and you have 2 specialty restaurants, which is one steakhouse, one, they call it gourmet restaurant, so it's their signature restaurant, so to speak, and they have a sushi bar. And AIDA has a quite unique system when it comes to beverages, because usually beverages are not included at AIDA, but during your meals in the buffet restaurants, soft drinks, wines, red wine, white wine, beer, and coffee is included, but not when you're in the a la carte restaurants. There, you have to pay for your drinks, but not for the food. And when you are in these specialty restaurants, so steakhouse and so on, you have to pay both food and beverages, which is quite complicated.
Okay. I kind of followed you along there. Yeah, I've actually pulled up the website with the Perla and look at all the different restaurants that they have on board. Is it flexible on board where you can just show up and get into these restaurants, or is it kind of like something where you have to book ahead of time? Like with Norwegian Royal, I've heard you can go on, days ahead before your cruise, and you can pick if there's a special night that that you're going to want to have, maybe the steakhouse. You can go ahead and book that before the cruise even starts. How does it work for AIDA? Can you just show up, and will there be space available mostly, or how does that work?
You can do both. Okay. You can book in advance. You can, of course, even book from home, but you can also just show up. So we didn't know that, for example, they strongly recommend to book in advance for the a la carte restaurants. And we also wanted to have breakfast in the a la carte restaurant, in the French restaurant, which is called French Kiss, because we found the buffets too stressful. Because one is at the table because you want to not lose your table, and then the one returns and the other goes to the buffet, and you just, you don't spend time together during the meal, so it was too stressful for us. So we decided to go to the a la carte restaurants for breakfast as well, which is absolutely amazing and very good service in there. And for 2 people, usually they always have a table available.
Okay.
I don't know how it is if you go with your family, 4, 5, 6 people, but for the 2 of us, it always was good to be spontaneous, although we then planned the whole voyage in advance at the first and second day.
Well, yeah, I'm looking at the pictures of some of the restaurants. They look just very similar to stuff that you would see on Norwegian or Disney as far as the ships goes. The restaurants go very elegant, nice-looking restaurants. So, yeah, very nice looking. What about while you guys are on board? What do people like to do? Is it kind of a similar thing if you're going to a warm destination? Do people hang out at the pool deck, or what type of entertainment or activities are there usually on board for people to do on the sea days?
Eat currywurst. what Germans do if they act like Germans. Well, there is really a Currywurstbude, as we would say in German. So little, you can call it food truck serving currywurst. And pool deck is a very good keyword when it comes to Aida Perla, because they don't have a pool deck as you would imagine it. So there's no open air pool, but they have two. There's a really small one, which is also connected to the indoor pool, but they have two very large indoor areas covered by wind panorama glass roof. And the one of them is called Beach Club, although you wouldn't find a beach in there, which is more adult-oriented space. So you have two bars in there, you have whirlpools, you have quite a large indoor pool, lots of deck chairs, and so it's quite a relaxing space. Although in the evening they will have a live band playing there. So the band had 8 people playing live, which was a very, very good band, and they were very entertaining. And they have laser shows in there, which was also quite okay. I did see better ones at TUI Cruises Mein Schiff 5, but that's the main competitor. and maybe I am not so neutral.
No, that's okay.
And they also host this silent party, which I just mentioned in the Beach Club, which is a funny story because the ship is in Rotterdam overnight. So you arrive one morning, stay overnight, and next morning you leave the port. And the terminal is in the middle of the city, so they cannot have this live band playing because all the people living around complained about being the ship and the people so loud.
Oh, no.
So the cruise line AIDA had to find a solution for it, and they came up with this silent party where they hand out headphones to the guests, and they have 3 channels. So you have 3 DJs playing their music in the Beach Club, and you can choose which one you want to listen to, which is quite a nice idea. And the funniest thing about it is when you take off your headphones, you hear all the other people singing along
to different songs that may be what you're listening to.
Exactly. It's really funny. We had so much fun that evening.
Oh man, well you get me intrigued. I want to try this sometime. So it sounds like fun.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I can recommend it to everyone. Just try it out.
So this Beach Club area where the pools are, does the roof open at all by any chance, or is it just all indoors?
It's all indoors, but the ship is going to be deployed to either the Caribbean or Dubai and Abu Dhabi, one of them. And they told us that they would replace some of the roof elements with elements you could open. I'm not sure whether that's really true, but I can imagine that they will do that just to adjust it to the weather they're operating in.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know Holland America has several ships where the roof will open for the pool deck, which makes it pretty flexible for when it's in cooler areas. They can shut it, and then you can still have that enjoyable experience by the pool. Whereas I think that a lot of people have been on, cruise ships where they don't have that, and maybe it's a windy day and it can be cool up there, and so the pool deck's not quite as enjoyable. So that's kind of a neat concept, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And you notice that, or when you notice that the ships were built for bad weather. Absolutely, because the first ship of this class, Aida Prima, was built to home port in Hamburg all year long. And they even planned to go to Norway in the winter season, which is not a very good idea. But then they changed plans. Probably, I assume, because they found out that people are not willing to pay high prices for a cruise in Northern Europe during the winter season. So they changed the itineraries, and Aida Prima went to the Canary Islands, and Perla went Prima from Hamburg to the Canary Islands, and the Perla took over in Hamburg, and they would both go to sunnier destinations. So one in the Caribbean, one in Dubai. They will have to change a few things because there is not so much open air deck space available where it could put deck chairs, for example, because the aft area of the upper deck is also indoor. It's called the Four Elements, and that's more an entertaining, family, kids-oriented area where you have two quite long water slides, which are quite similar to the Aqueduct on board Disney Fantasy and Disney Dream, although you go along the water slides without any boat, or how would you call it?
Right, just like a boat that you do, kind of like a ride vehicle or whatever.
Yeah, vehicle. And just go there on yourself. And then you have some kids' pool area, a giant LED screen where movies are played. And you have a ropes course. And this ropes course is definitely more difficult to do than the ones on the Norwegian Breakaway and Getaway and Escape. So they're quite difficult to go through.
Yeah, I'm looking at pictures of it right now, and it looks pretty challenging. So.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I think it was a good idea of Aida to make it not too easy, because you would have lots of family on board this ship, and so it's a little challenge. So if dad says, "Hey, son, let's go there," and they make a bet who's better in it, who's faster, whatever. I think that's a quite funny idea, quite good.
Did you challenge your girlfriend with this?
I'm afraid of height.
Don't tell anybody else, but I am actually too. So I know it's kind of crazy being a pilot, but as long as I'm in a plane, I'm fine. But oh man, get me up on the ledge of something like that, and I'm not too excited about that either. So Laura
did it on her own. She did a good job.
Oh, good. You supported her along as she did it.
Exactly.
There you go. Anything else that you can think of that stands out as differences between maybe Aida and like a Norwegian or a Disney that you can think of?
Well, one thing I would like to mention is their main entertainment area, let's call it that way, because they don't have a classic theater where you have a stage and it's a closed room, dark closed room, and then you have seat rows in front of the stage, but they have something they call theatrium. So it's a theater and an atrium combined. It's the center of the ship, and it's an open space, 3 decks, deck 6, 7, and 8. And yes, you do have a stage, and then you have seat rows in front of it, but over 3 decks. And this is an open space from port side to starboard, and you can look through the whole ship. So you have giant glass areas on the left and the right, port side and starboard. So it's quite not loud space.
I think it's kind of cool because it sounds like it's a functional space. Like it's a big space that they could do a lot of different things in, where they could have a show, or they could just have music or a big, party or something like that. So it's kind of a little bit more functional space where you can do a lot of different things. Whereas at theater, you're kind of just stuck with having a show for the most part, or maybe some presentations. So it sounds like it's a little bit more functional. As far as that goes.
That's exactly the reason why Aida chose to have something like the theatrium, because the ships the generation of ships they built before at Meyer are slightly smaller. They are for around 2,500 guests. They're around 50 meters shorter, so they don't have too much space on this ship. And they still wanted a theater and an atrium, but they said, well, the theater we only use for, let's say, 2 or 3 or 4 hours a day, and the atrium also, we don't use it the whole day. Let's combine it. So we have one large room that we use continuously over the day. That's how the idea developed, to have it. And I think it's a very good idea. The only people who don't like it are the dancers and singers and so on when they do rehearsals. Because everyone can see doing them rehearsals.
Oh, yeah. You're right out in the middle of everybody else when you're rehearsing, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have to watch your language even when you're rehearsing.
Well, it sounds like just a wonderful cruise that you guys get to take, and just an enjoyable time to get away from the schoolwork and just the rigors of home. So it sounds like you guys had a wonderful time.
Oh, yeah, we did.
And I would throw it out there. I would be totally intrigued. And I know this isn't for everybody, or a lot of our listeners that might not be interested in this. Is kind of maybe takes you out of your comfort zone a little bit, but I think it would be super fun to have an experience and go on an AIDA ship and kind of experience a different, the way other people, or a different way of cruising compared to what we're used to in the U.S., I guess. If anybody's interested in it, you can go to AIDA.de and kind of play around with their website and see some of the destinations that they go and some of the opportunities to maybe go over to Europe and experience something a little bit different, maybe out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, I think that's a good opportunity. Absolutely.
Yeah, or maybe go to Mein Schiff. We'll go there first because they got a better laser show, right?
They got a better laser show. Absolutely.
So maybe look at Mein Schiff.
And they got better crew.
Oh, there we go. They definitely have better crew. So go to Mein Schiff first, and then if for some reason it's all booked up, then go look at AIDA. Well, awesome, Florian. It is so much fun to always talk with you. I really enjoy our conversations about cruising, and I know a lot of our listeners do too. Is there anything else going on over there that you can think of as we close up today's conversation, or should we save it for next time?
I think we should save or gather new topics for next time. I think we talked about all the stuff that went on here.
Well, perfect. Well, what a wonderful overview of the Norwegian Bliss, and I love talking about the differences between AIDA and a U.S.-based cruise line like Norwegian or Disney. So I want to wish you the best of luck as you finish up your papers for your studies, and you're finishing those up here in the next month or two. And we will have you on here sometime soon before you start your journey on your next cruise on August 9th.
I hope so. I would like to be your guest again.
Definitely. Hey, you know what? I should ask you this quick. Are you going to be back, do you think, when that first Disney ship gets its steel cutting? Well, I know that's a long ways away from now. Who knows what you're going to be doing between now and then? But do you think that might be a possibility?
I could be in Papenburg when that happens, yeah.
Okay.
I could be at the shipyard.
Okay. That would be exciting. So, at least for us.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you so much again, Florian. I really appreciate your time today and your conversation and knowledge, and our guests love it as well. So, best of luck, and we will talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye. See you next time.
Bye. Well, once again, I'd like to thank Florian for coming on and taking time out of his busy schedule to share with us his experiences on the Norwegian Bliss. It's been a lot of fun being able to follow that ship as it was completed being built at Meyer Werft, as it went through its sea trials, and now Florian having just an excellent opportunity to sail with her on her inaugural sailing and kind of seeing all that entails. And it sure would be fun to maybe one day have one of you, the listeners out there, or possibly Christy and I, if we were lucky enough to go on the inaugural sailing of one of the 3 new Disney ships as they start to make their debut here soon. And it was also a lot of fun talking to him about AIDA Perla and kind of the differences between a German cruise line and those here in the States. Well, I sure hope you've been enjoying our podcast. I want to thank all of you who have been in contact with us over the last several months. It's been a lot of fun interacting with you, and I really appreciate everybody who's come on and is willing to come on and share your experiences with all of our listeners. We've got about 3 more shows to come out, and then Christy and I are taking a hiatus as we both have vacations planned for the summer. I hope all of you out there who are going cruising or elsewhere just have wonderful adventures as well this summer. So look for hopefully 3 more shows to come out, and then we're going to take a little bit of a break. I'll update everybody on Twitter and Facebook as far as that goes, and then we'll be back in July after these 3 shows and with a whole new schedule of shows and events. So if you know anybody else out there who would appreciate our show and would get some value out of it, we would love it if you would share it with them. That helps us grow the show and become a little bit more known in the Disney
and the cruising community. And once again, for all of you who are heading out on your next trip in the next couple weeks before our next show, all of us here at the DCL Podcast would like to wish you fair winds and safe journeys as you head out on your next adventure. Once again, thanks for coming back and taking a listen, and we'll see you next time on the DCL Podcast.